Take it away.
Thank you very much. Hello, and it's really wonderful to be here. Last time I was here, I think it was around 2009 maybe, so yeah, it's really nice. Firstly, I just want to acknowledge the huge work undertaken by my colleagues at the centre and also the artists who collaborated with us as well. So kind of positively and generously sharing their ideas and thoughts about their practice. Just a little bit of introduction. I'm a director of the Centre for Print Research, and I've been quite fortunate to have grown up with the centre over its 25 years. And what has evolved into being a kind of quite a truly international cross-disciplinary centre that combines practical skills and material knowledge around print and making using traditional and digital technologies, and that's the kind of subject of my talk today. So my background is in colour printing, half-toning, colour measurement, structural colour and fine art print production that explores novel colour spaces and methods of printing. So this talk is about that translation between the digitally made, the images and objects that are conceived through digital technologies, through image capture, through scanning, photos and drawings, and its translation through the physical matrices of printmaking and the material craft of making. Over the last century, print and craft has evolved as a way of thinking about making things. And it's been such an important bridge between art design and industrial design, and yet so undervalued and overlooked. And its applications and products can be seen both in the home, in the gallery, in a factory, or in a hospital ward. And it's this old age printing techniques and craft tradition that demonstrate fundamental benchmarks in material culture that are the foundation for today's high quality printing and fabrications, and of course for the future. And also where robotics and AI are increasingly prominent, how to make things, how to manipulate materials, which is fundamental to understanding what it is to be human. And yet how to make something is reliant on recognising the material, the tools and how to use them, which is central to our own core research at the centre. So this talk will present how transformative technologies and novel print processes can be used as a bridge between the handmade, the knowledge of materials, the analogue and digital fabrication, and the physical and tactile surfaces that are important for a rich and diverse material culture. So what's craft? What's its relationship in the 21st century? Craft has a tendency to be considered as rooted in the past, but craft also bridges so many aspects of design and technology. In an exhibition more than 10 years ago, run by the V&A, they introduced the term craft back into our vocabulary through this exhibition called The Power of Making. And it highlighted the relationship between material, hands, tools, and tacit knowledge, thus transforming craft into cool. So what is craft and why does it matter? Why do we make things? Daniel Charney described making as critical for survival or a way of learning. Thomas Thwaites asked, how do we make things? How do we know how to make things? Robert Pirsig, writing in the 70s, asked how to fix things when they are broken. Furniture maker Peter Korn believed that caring about what you do is a moral imperative. And Richard Sennett suggested it is an enduring basic human impulse, the desire to do a job well for its own sake. And of course, Sennett wasn't necessarily talking about craft, but to any field. And Peter Korn described his motivation for accomplishment as to gain a sense of meaning and fulfillment. It seems that making is also loaded with human values such as pride, problem solving, self-transformation, and a desire to do things well for its own sake. It is the problem solving, critical thinking, the reflection that moves the hobbyist or the amateur to the skilled. craft has also been framed by making things, as we said, by hand and the tools to make them. Tools are crucial to framing, but also knowing how to use them is important, exactly why we're here today and using all the range of tools that we have to hand. But in response to a quote by Abraham Lincoln, who said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I will spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe." In a project organised by Sophie Boone, she gave us this task at the CFPR, and we were asked, what 3 tools are important to your practice? And it was interesting to note that although we all work in the digital sphere, our practice is still embedded in that craft of making, so that translation between software and screens, but also analog tools alongside the digital ones. However, computers, robotics and AI also present new ways and new possibilities that can take us in all sorts of different directions and open up new styles of creative expression. So far, as we've seen, it's been the input of the artist as author to write the script and the coding, but who also kind of masterminds the actions of the robot. So all in all, it is still traceable back to the human's desire to create. This is the work of Verity Winslow, who's been exploring and developing how machines make their own marks, how a robot syntax might be different to a human-made one. And here we have an example of collaboration between calligrapher Jessica Ho and from Hong Kong Design Polytechnic, Associate Professor Fabiano Dagnano, who used the visual programming language of Grasshopper to mimic the arm and hand gestures of brushstrokes. So now I'm going to move on to the paper that is included in the book about the Artist in Residence programme, about the Cabinet of Curiosities. And this has been, the Artist in Residence has been underway since 2021. And I just wanted to introduce you to 4 of the collaborative case studies that have explored that complexity of translation and transition. So I've got Tracy Hill, but also there's a range of other examples here we're working with, and they all come with a very particular set of their own professional skill set, which ranges from ceramics, from sculpture, animation, filmmaking, architecture, and they have less of a knowledge in printmaking. So our job is to translate their ideas through the medium of print. And our own technology spans a whole range of print technology, from 2D to 3D, traditional etching and litho presses to extrusion machines and 3D metal printers. Tracy Hill worked with the team at CFPR to undertake innovative material and technological investigations to combine traditional printmaking with superconductive possibilities of graphene. And the aim was to create a print that could conduct energy that, when touched by a human hand, had the potential to engage a viewer through visual, sonic and sensory experiences. And she was working with kymatics and photography to create an edition that evolved beyond the materials, resulting in images that forced a change in her approach. And then the final edition print at first glance shows no kind of apparent signs of what lies below the surface. And however, almost invisibly, it carries the potential to reveal the unheard in an exchange of energy between body and ink. So when wired and connected to a touchboard and speaker, you can see in the bottom, it has and as the hand is in proximity or touches the print surface, there's a performative exchange of energy that triggers the sound. The seen, unseen reveals the unheard. As a ceramicist, Matt Smith worked with and has worked with and manipulated found figures in his studio, but there were limits to what he could do with fired clay. So he was keen to see what the languages of digital processes might bring to his investigation. And Smith came to the residency with a knowledge gap about 3D printing and digital design and manipulation. So therefore, a significant part of his residency was involved in that kind of upskilling and kind of development of his knowledge of software. So he scanned these sort of Baroque Rococo figurines, which you often quite see in junk shops, which were then digitally stitched together to form a digital mesh, which you can kind of see in the bottom right-hand corner, this rather lovely orange kind of point cloud. And these digital meshes were then manipulated, combined, stretched, or mirrored using CAD animation software and then printed. The printing was done on using PLA, plastic polymer, which was heated and then built in layers to create the desired form. But of course, the limits of the printers constrained the scale and required quite often laborious kind of cutting and cleaning to finishing by hand. But what he was intrigued about was that distortion, how distortion crept in at each stage, from 3D to screen and then back to 3D. And this kind of inherent visual language of the technology, where at each point it left its mark. That's echoing this sort of translation from drawing to figurine to etching that also occurred in the 18th century. So, for example, the etchings by the painter and draftsman Francois Boucher, where he adapted Rococo porcelain figurines. So he drew these figurines to produce etchings and engravings. So there's this sort of rather nice sort of circularity there with what Matt has been doing. Alicia Paz, she kind of arrived fresh from a residency in Sheffield, and she had an opportunity to access a range of historic collections at Chatsworth House in Derbyshire. And she had access to an extraordinary collection of paintings and sculptures and textiles, decorative arts, and the Chatsworth House Theatre. So this access to the archive inspired a whole new body of work using a cameraless technique, using kind of photograms and flatbed scanners. And so she used this kind of overlayering in the software that sort of were then transferred onto this sort of translucent silk, which when hung next to each other also kind of continued with that kind of overlayering appearance, therefore converting memories of materials and lived experiences to kind of new visual and tactile experiences. This is my favourite. This is by Chuck Elliott. And he came and he wanted to do everything. And so this is one kind of compartment of his work. And Elliott's practice explores the effects of line, volume, colour and light, which, as he describes, are visual art's most fundamental building blocks. And his digital drawings comprise fluid, interlocking geometries, which you can see along the top, based on the golden section. Like the work of Smith, this translation from drawing or scan on the screen to a physical manifestation is bound by the materials and the process of translation, from scan or CAD drawing to 3D print, or casting in refractory plaster, which is then, in his next step, burnt into, cast into glass, or drawing from photopolymer plate, which is then ink and printed. And as Elliott describes his relationship of tools and making, for me, it's really important to use tools that are of this moment and make works that look forward, but also evidence this time. I think engaging art almost always does that, providing us with a reflection of ourselves. And perhaps that's why the history of art and the progress it depicts is so compelling. So we were really interested as to how to present such a diverse range of artists' work. So we came up with the idea of a movable cabinet, a portable exhibition, or a cabinet of curiosities. And Wunder cabinets have existed for centuries and reflect the interests and passions of the collector or the curator. The difference to the museum Wunder cabinet, ours, is that we can pack it up. We can do it a flat pack, we can put it into the back of a van, and we can reassemble it in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, in different places, from schools and foyers and offices. And we really want people to be able to enjoy and to kind of take it home with them as well, and to be able to share the artworks that we've made in collaboration with the artists. So we wanted to create more information once the exhibition had finished, and to share those kind of insights with the audiences. So we worked with filmmaker to record artist conversations. So also as part of the exhibition, on the right-hand side, we designed a tear-off sheet with a description of each of the artists' work, and a little picture representing their work, and also a QR that takes them to the website, which again provides more information to the artists. And then on the left, we created these series of booklets which track the progression of the artists, their residency at the centre, and these are all kind of beautifully designed and printed and bound. So our aim for the residency and also for the exhibition and the cabinet was to overcome conversation barriers by inviting audiences to engage and share their experiences and thoughts, to bring their own thoughts and ideas. And each print demonstrates the collaborative nature of printmaking, emerging print technologies and novel materials in our current field. These artworks are intended as points of departure and to encourage audiences to weave their own stories into them. The cabinet taps into our understanding of materiality and tactile engagement, the urge to handle and to explore, and the power of the visual to create and share narratives. Thank you for listening. Please do check out the website, and if you're in Bristol, please do come and visit us.